Right, you lot, I know what you're thinking of, a different background. Like you're on another planet, I know. Look, I'm trying out the kind of green screen background for a couple of videos now. Just wanted to change it up, it gets boring after a while. So, what I'm going to be doing today is doing a video on the Premier League title race, the current race. And it's been very exciting recently because Man City usually just steamroll it and make it as boring as the season of Doc Martin, when in reality, now it is engaging, thrilling, because Man City have won 1 game in 5. They'll probably still win it in the end, but come on, let's have a bit of fun for a little bit. Now, in my opinion, there are 2 major candidates besides Man City who are possible. And I know the hipsters love Aston Villa, and look, what Unai Emery is doing with Aston Villa at the moment is nothing short of spectacular. I feel that the kind of transformation they've had in that squad, and they've had to contend with injuries, don't forget. Tyrone Mings went down, but to take a team that were in the relegation zone under Dean Smith, and then 2 years later in a similar position under Steven Gerrard, to genuinely in top 4 contention is sensational. But the big issue with Villa is going to, of course, be the fixture congestion. I think Villa, as amazing as their home record is, their away form, they've been suspect to get destroyed in games. They lost to Nottingham Forest, who are not doing too hot themselves. They only got a point against Bournemouth and were quite heavily destroyed against the likes of Liverpool and Newcastle earlier on in the season. So I think as good as Villa are, I don't think they're championship mentality yet. But who knows what Unai Emery can do in a couple of seasons. But you got to love the 5 minutes of fame. Sky Sports are getting an absolute field day out of all the bloody... Can Aston Villa win the league with it? It's not happening. Now, Man City are the firm favourites. I want to talk about them first. But they have really been exposed this season. That midfield of Rodri, Gundogan, De Bruyne were focal. Was essential. There was no midfield in the league that came close. But that midfield has been ripped apart. Of course, Rodri is still there, but Gundogan, of course, left for Barcelona. And De Bruyne, of course, has been injured. And who knows, will De Bruyne be at the level he'd been at before? I mean, even 80% of De Bruyne is better than most Premier League players, but still. Man City have shown a lot of frailties this season. I think their creativity has been lacking at points this season. They were absolutely played off the park against Aston Villa, and even against Luton Town, they needed to ride their luck a bit. And Luton, maybe a better team on that day, could have done something against Manchester City. City have a lot of possession always in games, and they very much control. You can't get the ball off them, and that's been kind of a trend you've seen, but they've not been able to do a lot with that. I think defensively, it's been bizarre because their defence has not been at the level. Liverpool are constantly criticised for their defence when they have actually better defensive stats this season than Manchester City, who let Chelsea score 4 past them in a mental game. They let Tottenham score 3 past them, and they have not been convincing performances, and they've had a really bad run. To win 1 game in 5 is just not good enough for Manchester City. And look, usually at the turn of the year, they do tend to turn things around and they go on an unbelievable run. You cannot stop them. But right now is the time where a team like Liverpool, a team like Arsenal, need to capitalise on this fall because Man City are struggling this season. Julian Alvarez has been off it in games, and Foden is not delivering at the level that a Riyad Mahrez or someone like a David Silva or a Yaya Toure would deliver for Man City. He is struggling. Jack Grealish, I know he scored 2 goals in 2 games, but he can't always get into the team. There are a lot of frailties with Manchester City. Then we have Arsenal. Now, Arsenal was really impressed with this season because I feel last season there was a lot of buzz around them. They were playing very exciting football. A lot of people were behind them. They loved what Arteta was doing. Whereas this season, they've not been as pinpoint kind of convincing. They have not been at that level, but then they've still been able to get these results, and they're still up there. They've been going under the radar, which in my opinion is a great feature for Arsenal to have, and I think that will help in the long run. I think the big issue I've had with Arsenal this season is actually some of their summer signings. Timber was injured from the start, so that was really bad. But the signings of David Raya on loan and Havertz have really caused more harm than good. I know Havertz scored a last-minute winner, of course, against Brentford, and I know he almost scored if it wasn't for the fact he handballed it both 10 times. But the balance of the midfield, he's a limited Odegaard. Odegaard, I think, has gone under the radar. He was so incredible last season, but this year he's not been delivering. He looks gassed, out of idea, and his creative and goal scoring clinical is gone. He was the highest goal scoring midfielder, even above De Bruyne last season, and that has not been able to carry through. And I think I think Granit Xhaka was a big loss, and Thomas Partey is not involved. They're playing with Rice, Havertz, and Odegaard, three players who, they're more attacking based. So of course Rice can do the holding role. He's been doing that really well. He's been probably the sign of the season, Declan Rice, but he can't do it all on his own. And I think Arteta does need to sort that out. The Raya Ramsdale situation is honestly just embarrassing. It is the absolute dream of Sky Sports. They love this saga. They milk it, and it's such an overblown thing when I don't think Raya or Ramsdale played that poor, but I do think there's so much pressure on them that when they make a mistake, that other keepers, for example, if Vicario made a mistake that Raya made, there's not as much pressure on him because Vicario knows he's the number one. Likewise with someone like an Ederson. But to have these two players competing for the one, it puts more pressure on the other one and makes the performance more likely to decrease. It's quickly funny how quickly narrative of Raya changed. Everyone was calling for Tottenham to sign Raya. It was ridiculous that they backed off, and I don't think he's been bad, but he's not set the world alight, and I think that could be Arsenal's big frailty. Defensively, I've been really impressed with Arsenal, actually. I think that they've got Saliba and Gabriel, such an amazing duo, and I think when Timber comes back near the end of the season, that will only strengthen at the back. I think Saka, Martinelli, Jesus, have they been the most clinical? No, but they are still delivering for the team, and they are doing great things. But my only worry with Arsenal right now is going to be, can they take the injuries? Do they have the squad? Because I think they've been very lucky with injuries so far. I know Partey was out for a considerable amount of time, but he's not really had a place in the squad anyway, so it doesn't really matter. And I know there was a part when Martinelli and Trossard were injured, but they've had, the goals. I think Arsenal's priority in January is to get someone to challenge Jesus. I think the Jesus thing is a bit ridiculous. I think a lot of people are quick to hate on Gabriel Jesus when I think he's a clinical, solid player who is kind of digressed and kind of hated on because he doesn't score enough, when there's a lot more to the striker than actually scoring the goals. But I do think someone like Ivan Toney, or someone who could even compete with Jesus or play alongside him, would really help Arsenal. Then we have Liverpool, who do currently sit at top of the league, and Liverpool, similar to Arsenal, haven't always played the best this season. There's been a lot of games, especially recently, where they've come back from behind. 18 points from a losing position Liverpool have taken this season, and it really is a testament to the brilliance of Jurgen Klopp that Liverpool are in this position, because going into the season, I know there were people who didn't predict Liverpool to be in the top 4, for example. They said, they worried about the midfield and this new midfield, but they've really adjusted in. McAllister, for a guy playing out of position, has more than impressed. Szoboszlai has been a sign of the season contender, and Gravenberch for steal of the season, along with the kind of progression that Curtis Jones and Harvey Elliott are having in that midfield. And I really think the chemistry is really there. The attacking options that Liverpool have are nothing short of incredible. I mean, they, all 5 of them have equal right to start and all have arguments, and everyone's going to favour a different one. The only one guaranteed to start is Mohamed Salah, but whether it's Darwin Núñez, Cody Gakpo, Luis Diaz, or even Diego Jota, you don't know, but you're going to get something from them, and they've all shown in moments this season that absolute quality. The weakness with Liverpool, which is kind of commonly agreed, is that defence, and I think the Liverpool defence has not been as bad as last season so far. I think Trent is a massive talking point, and I think the Trent narrative is quite embarrassing now. I feel a lot of people just go out of their way to clip up every small thing he does, when he does a lot of great things defensively that you never see, because that doesn't fit the agenda. And I think it is an embarrassing argument now, and he has shown in moments this season his amazing attacking stats, his amazing defensive stats that he's been able to put up, and he's absolutely transformed. Virgil van Dijk has transformed back to his best this season, and he hasn't always had a consistent partnership. Konate, I don't think has been brilliant this season. I'll be the first to admit it, and I think that Matip injury was a big blow. But at the same time, Joe Gomez and Joel Kwanzaa have really stepped up this season as well. I think Liverpool really do have the depth, but my only worry with Liverpool is that away, similar to what I said with Aston Villa, they have really struggled. Away games this season has been a big talk in contention, and especially to kind of lower table teams. Luton Town gave them a lot of problem. Crystal Palace gave them a lot of issues, even though they ended up winning the game. And, when that crunch period comes in, Liverpool are also quite likely to go far in the Carabao Cup. They're still in that competition, and if they beat West Ham at home, which you'd expect them probably to do, then they could be in a semi-final, then maybe even final of that. Also, the Europa League, you expect them to be a favourite in that and to go to at least probably the last 8, if not last 4. So I think they will have a lot of games to bet. It could be a very long season, and the injury record of Liverpool, they have been quite lucky. Of course, Andy Robertson did pick up a massive injury, but that's only been the only real long-term issue that Liverpool have. So who do I see doing it? Who is my champion? And at the moment, it still is Man City. I think even though they've had a bad run at the moment, Pep always kind of finds a way. But out of Arsenal and Liverpool, I'd probably favour Liverpool because I think they have the history of being there. I think they've got the better manager, and I actually think they've had the more impressive season based off expectations so far. And I just see them more likely than Arsenal, but I still think it will be Man City in the end. Is anyone else in the race? I already ruled out Aston Villa. I don't think so. Tottenham, well, look, that bubble burst quicker than the career of Kevin Spacey. And as for Newcastle, I mean, you can't be losing 3-0 to Everton, for God's sake. I think they're in a title race. And Chelsea, you're more